Back in the day when I was just a wee little Pokemon trainer, my go-to guide when I got stuck in one of the games was Marriland's website. I swear he always created the best walkthroughs, as they included things like starter breakdowns, analyses of each major battle, and even points in the game where he showed off his current team. So I thought it'd be fun to take a look back at one of Marriland's nostalgic guides, and use it to help me beat Pokemon Black and White in order to sort of celebrate it and give the walkthrough the attention it deserves. Not only will I be trying to follow each step as closely as I can, but I'll also be on the lookout for other cool tidbits that he's sprinkled in. By the way, yes, this is partially inspired by Papa C's Beating Pokemon as Nintendo Intended series, so big shout out to him. And if you've been around on the channel for about 3 years, first of all, thank you, and second of all, yes, I did make some videos like this before, but I mean, I'll be honest, they're old and they kinda suck. Anyways, make sure to hit that sub button as it really does help out the channel. And with all that said, let's get straight to it. Whoa, hold up. You've been looking for a good meal replacement, haven't you? Well hey, Control's here for you. They've got the best flavors of protein bars, cookies, and powder that contain 15 to 23 grams of protein and only 230 to 270 calories. You can use my code TerrorQuake10 at checkout to get 10% off, or up to 30% off using their Bundle Up feature. Thank you guys for checking out Control, and now let's get back to the action. Right off the bat on the first page, there's a very detailed analysis of each starter Pokemon. We're talking things like how easy it'll be to use each of them, to a list of their notable level up moves and TMs. Now remember, I gotta follow the guide as closely as possible, since I'm kind of acting like I've never played a Pokemon game before. This means that whenever Marriland provides an update of his team, my squad should look relatively similar. Therefore, I chose Oshawott, beat up on the rivals, walked into Bianca's house at a pretty bad time, and then got schooled by Professor Juniper on the first route, as we still didn't know how to catch a Pokemon. Soon enough I did, allowing us to add a Lillipup and Patrat to the party. Oh, and if you thought only the starters got an analysis, well you'd be wrong, because Marriland does one for every new Pokemon in each area. I mean, the dedication is crazy. Anyways, by the time we reached Accumula Town, it was time for the first team checkpoint, if that's what you want to call it. I don't know, I'll show off my party occasionally towards the bottom of the screen to prove that I am actually trying to match Marriland's team. Nonetheless, I bought the recommended amount of Pokeballs and potions, and I was happy to see that he made mention of the musicians in town, who will slightly change the theme of the area. I feel like that's sort of an overlooked feature of the Gen 5 titles. Moving forward, I had to catch a Purloin on Route 2, before going 2-0 against Bianca. Charon, on the other hand, was legitimately tough. My levels weren't great at the moment, so it literally came down to Lillipup to finish off his Snivy. Fortunately, Oshawott easily handled Purloin. Then it was off to the Dream Yard, where it was highly recommended to snag the Elemental Monkey, since the first gym is super effective on your starter. Speaking of, the guide made mention of the fact that this is technically the hardest first gym puzzle in Pokemon, at least out of Gens 1 through 5. Think about it, Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, and Sinnoh's first gyms are all just a straightforward path, but here you have to do a little quiz. That aside, the showdown with Silent went off without a hitch, as Pansear burnt Pansage to a crisp. Back in the Dream Yard, I just now found out that Fenno is apparently a college friend of Professor Juniper, so that's interesting. The third go-around with Charon wasn't nearly as difficult as the last one, and I made sure to pick up a Blitzel and Roggenrola in the area, as our team is getting some upgrades before the next gen. In Nacrene City, Marriland advised us to purchase some X items, which I've never bothered using before, or I mean, I don't know what these are because this is my first Pokemon game. Anyways, N wasn't much of a challenge, but I did copy him a bit by snatching a Timber nearby, who also got us a free star piece from this big rock. With the outer section of the Pinwheel Forest covered, it was time to get badge number 2. Our newly evolved Dewott cut down Herdier with Razor Shell, and the walkthrough said to send out Roggenrola for the Watchog since its retaliate attack can be kinda scary. However, Lenora went for Leer instead, so yeah, Roggenrola had no issues getting us the dub. Marriland spent a decent chunk of the next page talking about the Sky Arrow Bridge, and for good reason. Seeing this area was really cool for the first time, and I swear Pokemon games just don't come with this type of charm anymore. Despite playing through Pokemon Black and White plenty of times, I learned about some new stuff in Castelia City thanks to the walkthrough, like this guy in the Pokemon Center who will give you a reward upon trading with a certain amount of people online. He'll even hand over a Master Ball if you've traded with 50. After buying a solid amount of lemonades, as the guide said to do, I learned about another new event. By talking to these two people on Castelia Street, Zora will be counted as seen in your Pokédex. But if you manage to get your hands on the special event Celebi from the Gen 4 titles and bring it to them, the person on the left will actually transform into a Zora and join your party. You would need the Pokemon Relocator to get the Celebi here in the first place though, which can be obtained by telling this scientist 2 codes in the northern part of Castelia City. The first code is Everyone Happy, while the second one is Simple Connection. With all those cool things becoming known to me, it was time to get back to business by challenging Berg. This one wasn't all that difficult due to me having counters for his entire team, so the third badge was ours in no time. The road north was pretty straightforward, including 2 easy matches with Bianca and Charon, because when are they ever difficult? Upon reaching Nimbasa City, it was highly advised to buy the TMs for Return, Thunderwave, Light Screen, and Reflect, but that completely emptied my pockets. As a matter of fact, I couldn't even afford Reflect. Not a big deal though, because we can call Elisa weird. That's a pretty weird way to spell weird. Okay, what am I doing? The awkward battle with N wasn't so bad, but the same can't be said for Elisa. Her Emolgas paralyzed me and kept spamming Volt Switch, while Zebstrika was hitting us like a truck. It came down to Duat living with 4 HP after a spark, and finally knocking her out to conquer the gym. Over in the Lostlorn Forest lies another Pokemon Relocator associated event, as if you bring one of the event legendary beasts to the lady in the trailer, you get the opportunity to snag a Zoroark. The guide then took a detour and showed off some places to use strength, and I love when walkthroughs do this. I just feel like these types of areas are often forgotten about during a typical playthrough. West of Nimbasa, Charon actually put up a decent fight. I mean, nothing that would have made me lose, but he took down a couple Mons. The Driftvale drawbridge was then lowered, and I guess I'm a slowpoke since I decided to walk across it. Upon arriving in Driftvale, I traded with this guy for a Basculin, who I hope stays on the team for a bit, as I've never used one before. Nevertheless, it was already time to throw hands with Clay, but it was more of a one-sided affair thanks to Duat. Strangely enough, the next Mon Marriland added to his team was Sigilif, all the way back at the Desert Resort. Granted, I've used this thing enough times to know that it's a workhorse. Bianca went down once again, so the Chargestone Cave opened up, where the walkthrough made sure we had Super Repels on hand. Don't worry dog, I'm already 2 steps ahead. Route 7 featured some super duper tall blue grass, but aside from that we charged into the Mistralton Gym. And might I say, this was a pretty simple one. After a classic Charon beatdown, it was time for another HM backtracking session, which included catching an Axew in the Mistralton Cave and going after the first 2 Swords of Justice. I guess that was kind of fun to do because I've never caught Cobalion and Virizion this early in the game. On the other side of Twist Mountain awaited Bryson, whose team took a couple slaps to the face for an easy victory. So it was time for a bunch of plot stuff where Marriland called Charon stupid, which is very valid. I mean, come on, we've all said that about Charon before. It also looks like this walkthrough shares a similar vocabulary to me, as it says golly. Yeah, if you tune into the Twitch live streams, you would know I say that a good bit. Anyways, there was only one more badge to grab, and it was a piece of cake. After checking out the Tornadus/Thunderous cutscene, we caught Terrakion in Victory Road, and by the way, Marriland must have really liked Dusk Balls, because he talks about them a ton in this walkthrough. But it was now time for some last-minute Elite Four preparations, which included buying some X defense and special defense to aid us in battle. As a matter of fact, the guide talked about how Chantal and Caitlyn start with special attackers, while Grimsley and Marshall begin with physical attackers, making the choice of using an X defense or special defense pretty easy. Overall, the Elite Four wasn't bad, so after multiple different spoiler warnings, because Marriland looked out for the people who hadn't played the game yet at the time, N and Getsis were up. Unsurprisingly, their Pokemon were accompanied by a nice analysis, and in the end, we saved Unova. Now, the walkthrough also includes steps to complete the postgame, which is awesome, as there are definitely some that just end after the main storyline. However, I won't highlight every single area, but I do go into much more detail in the Pokemon Black and White postgame video that I made a few years back. Nonetheless, it all began with seeing a looker disguised as our mom. Yeah, very odd hobby indeed. I then trekked to the Desert Resort to catch one of the Zenmo Darmanitans, since I've never gotten one before. Also, Darby Claydol's in the Relic Castle apparently. Yeah man, that's gotta be the best typo. Upon arriving in the White Forest, I noticed something strange. I guess repels don't work here because I was still running into wild mons. Hey, you learn something new every day. I appreciated the walkthrough's detail on the Abyssal Ruins, as it even came with various maps of the location. Not to mention, I didn't know it was like the Safari Zone, in the fact that you only have a certain amount of steps. Up near the village bridge, this baker used a combi and ursarang. Get it? Cause it's like a bear and honey? Hey, look, me and Marriland thought it was very punny. The last thing I want to touch on in the walkthrough is Marriland's quote-unquote lazy way to defeat some of the tougher trainers. He lays out this strategy for Morimoto, Cynthia, and the Elite Four rematches. I'll cover those first two battles, which involve catching the Volcarona in the Relic Castle. After doing so, all you gotta do is set up with Quiver Dance against Morimoto's Lipard or Cynthia's Spiritomb, and you can sweep the rest of their squads. Even though it makes these battles a little anticlimactic, it's nice that the guy displays a very easy way to win, as opposed to brute forcing your way through with your regular team members. And with that, we've beaten Pokemon how Marriland intended. As I said before, I have a lot of nostalgia looking back at these walkthroughs, so it was very fun to follow along with the website and play through these classic Pokemon games in a different sort of way. Definitely let me know if you want to see more videos like this, but for now, I hope you guys enjoyed, have a great rest of your day, and until next time, deuces!